What'd he say his name was? Gebatron.
Hello everyone, I am Gebatron. The Hell Let Loose 2025 roadmap is here. We're going to be reacting to it. I will not be doing kind of like my normal thing where, long story short, this video is going to be a little bit different of a format. I'm just going to go through, I'm going to react to it. This isn't edited. Well, it's edited a little, but it's not, it's not scripted like my normal content. There won't be a whole lot of supplemental material here. So a little bit of a different format. I apologize for those of you who are used to my higher quality, more edited content. Anyway, so the roadmap is here. Let's take a look at it. And, right away looking at it, it looks kind of underwhelming. I'm not going to beat around the bush. It looks that way, but I think there's more than meets the eye to it. The first thing I want to address, though, is don't get too caught up in like the conspiracy theories with the pictures and stuff here. Like a lot of this, the artwork you see on the roadmap is old material. For example, over here it says new vehicles classified. And if we zoom in, we'll see this person on top of the vehicle here that has an MG. So you might be thinking, oh my God, we're going to get mounted MGs. Well, this picture or this artwork was used back when Black Matter was still running the show. And the same thing came up when they introduced this artwork. So, this is old material. Like down here, this MG right here, this is an old uniform from way back in the day, like early access and before. I'm just saying that to say that, don't be looking at these pictures thinking, oh my God, this is the stuff that we're going to get necessarily. So it says upcoming content. This year, Hell Let Loose will continue to evolve and grow. Our next 4 major updates will include the additions of 2 brand new maps, a refresh to Stalingrad, powerful new vehicles, thematic, cosmetic DLCs, quality of life improvements, bug fixes, and much more. And right away, we got new map, Tobruk. We've already seen a lot of Tobruk actually with PTE, public PTE and all that kind of stuff. That's going to be releasing in April here. So that's right around the corner. I am excited to play Tobruk. I think it's a good map. I think there's a lot of good things happening with Tobruk. Some of it has to do with some other things that we'll talk about on this roadmap here. Moving on, new map, Eastern Front. Now we can speculate all day. There's tons of battles to choose from. Rostov, there's Operation Bagration. We could do a map that is early Barbarossa, Leningrad, Moscow, you name it, it's there. Who knows, right? But I will speculate a little bit. I mean, I'm going to do a lot of speculating here because that's fun, right? But I think rather than an early Eastern Front map, I think we're going to get a more late war. I think maybe maybe I'm a little too excited, but maybe we're going to get Berlin or Silo Heights or something like that, something really end of the war. And I think some of that might have to do with the new vehicles. Anyway, moving on, we're going to get a map fresh of Stalingrad, and I think that's good. What do I think that's going to entail? I think one of the biggest problems with Stalingrad is movement. So I think what we're going to see is not like fully constructed buildings, but some more buildings that are a little more structurally there than they were before. Hopefully we'll get more like impact craters and things like that. We'll get some lighting updates. I think Stalingrad really needs some better lighting. But I think there's just going to be a lot of cover, micro cover, stuff like that, kind of like what they did with Purple Heart Lane this last year to just make movement better. New vehicles. Now, this could be a whole host of things too. I'm excited for this. I mean, we all want new vehicles. We all want more toys, more things to play with, right? I kind of hope that one of the things that's included with new vehicles is a change to the vehicle limit. If you guys want to learn more about the vehicle limit, here you go in the top right. But if we're going to get new vehicles and we want that variety to come across in the game, I think we do have to increase that vehicle limit. Anyway, this could be something as simple as adding Panzer IIIs and Crusader tanks to, say, Tobruk and El Alamein. It could be that simple. I think that would be easy and that would be safe. It could be something much more than that, though. Maybe super heavy tanks, maybe we're going to get a King Tiger, KV tanks, Pershing tank, etc. If they do that, there's going to have to be some restrictions on it, though, right? Because if you're allowed to have super heavy tanks, well, obviously they're going to be harder to penetrate, harder to destroy. Maybe satchels don't destroy super heavy tanks like they destroy heavy tanks and medium tanks and whatever else. Now, in order to stop a super heavy tank meta, where everyone just only drives super heavy tanks. Maybe you only can have one on the field at a time. Maybe there's like a extremely long cooldown on them. Maybe you only even could get like 2 or 3 in an hour-and-a-half match anyway, just based on cooldown times. So if we get super heavy tanks, which would be really cool, and that kind of goes back to what I was talking about with that Eastern Front map being maybe Battle of Berlin type thing, that late war type of a map, so they can introduce this stuff on that map. I think that would be cool, but there are going to have to be some restrictions if we get super heavy tanks. Another thing that maybe New Vehicles is including is, I know we'll get down to gameplay reworks here, but it says artillery systems. Maybe SPGs is something that this could include. I think we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get down to talking about the artillery systems. What else? What other kind of vehicles were there in World War II? Tank destroyers. Now, one thing that's nice about tank destroyers in video games is that like the benefit and the drawback is like really, baked into the vehicle itself, right? Getting the vehicle coordinated enough to be effective. Your driver and your gunner and your commander are all going to have to be working even more closely together in a tank destroyer because the traverse on your gun is so limited. So while yes, they're going to be able to destroy a lot of armor that they come up against, like maybe the tank destroyer can destroy all other armor in a couple of shots, it's going to be very difficult for crews to do that, especially in close quarters. So the advantages and the disadvantages are already kind of built in. The balancing is already kind of built into that kind of vehicle. So maybe it's none of those things. Maybe it's just like, hey, we're going to get a different kind of truck or something like that. Maybe there's going to be like a towing vehicle even, to like help get vehicles unstuck. Who knows? Could be anything. Could be all the things I said in some fashion or another. It could be nothing of what I said. Moving on, themed cosmetic DLC. That is what it is. I don't really have a problem with the DLC in Hell Let Loose. I do hope we get some more uniforms for the desert maps, but I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. Moving on to feature upgrades, weather variations. Now, we already have some weather variations. There's, like rainstorms you can get now on Purple Heart Lane. There's snowstorms on Elsenborn Ridge. And I hope that they just continue to work that into other maps and bring sandstorms on Tobruk and El Alamein, stuff like that. No complaints there. XP reward systems. Now, this is something that I've been asking for a long time. Speaking of that, check the video at the top right. As a matter of fact, I'll make a whole playlist of videos at the top right of things that I have covered that I want in Hell Let Loose or don't want in Hell Let Loose and why. Go ahead and check those out. Anyway, changes to XP is something that I've asked for. Right now, you don't even get very much XP for destroying enemy garrisons or enemy nodes. I would also like to see changes in this regard. Like, let's say you're a level 10 squad leader, right? And you don't want a squad leader anymore. You got other classes that you want to level up, and your squad doesn't have a squad leader. And what do? I'd like you to be able to take the squad leader role, get XP from doing that, and be able to put it into another infantry role. If squad leading is something you enjoy, if it's something you're good at, you can continue to do it and level up other classes while you do it. I explain more about how I want that to work in one of those videos at the top right. But anyway, hopefully, at the very least, we just get more XP for doing things that significantly impact the game, like destroying enemy spawns. Flamethrower changes. Now, we already saw some of these in the PTE. I won't go over all of them because we'll find out what that all is going to be when Tobruk is released. But I did make a whole video on changes I want done to that. Check it out at the top right. Flamethrower needs a lot of things to be better. It needs a little bit more range. It needs to be able to suppress the enemy. Yeah, those are probably the two major ones. There's other things that need to change there too. Like I said, I made a whole video talking about that. So if you're really interested in what I think needs to happen there, go check that out. But we are going to get changes, which is good. So excited to see what that brings. Archon version 2. This mostly has to do with server management and that kind of stuff, which of course that's good. We need better Archon. Audio. Now, audio is something that Hell Let Loose needs to improve on and always kind of has needed to improve on. You have games, like the more popular games like Battlefield and Call of Duty on one end of the spectrum, they do audio better than Hell Let Loose. And I'm not saying Hell Let Loose is bad, but its competition on that end of things has better audio, and its competition on the other end of things like Squad 44 and Squad has better audio. It needs to step up its audio game. I'm glad to see that that's on here and that they will be working on that. VFX kind of goes hand in hand with audio here a little bit, like how all the vehicles in the game, when they're destroyed, that's tanks, trucks, hell, even the AT guns, they all have the same visual effects when they're destroyed, and on top of it, it's not that impressive, and on top of that, it's two-dimensional. It's not even a three-dimensional thing. Maybe that's the way it has to be, I don't know, but visual effects are on here. Hopefully we get at least variation in those types of things, not to mention things like rockets, grenade explosions, satchel explosions, stuff like that. All that stuff could be improved. With this audio and visual effects stuff, if Hell Let Loose wants to compete with Battlefield eventually, which should be a goal, and it wants to compete with even like Squad 44 in that aspect, in these aspects, it needs to improve. And it's here on the roadmap, which is good. Now we're going to skip gameplay reworks right now. We're going to go to quality of life improvement. Increased server controls. Of course, this is great. I don't know exactly what it means. Hopefully it means we get more control over what's going on in the match. Like how to set up to make things like hosting an event much more easy. Setting up strong points so you get the strong points you want. Maybe more control over the weather, things like that. Admin camera, I don't really know what they have planned here. The admin camera in Hell Let Loose, I think, is pretty good. So any improvements there are going to be welcome. But this doesn't really benefit too terribly many people. It's going to benefit casting, like people who stream matches from the admin cam and like commentate. Rasbora does some stuff like that. Fresh Baked Goods, Das Altberg, people like that. User interfaces, of course, this is going to be subjective, but the more they make, the UI and all that kind of stuff better, no problems there. Now, this says barbed wire LOD fixes or level of detail fixes. This roadmap that I'm using right here is one that we got about 20 hours before the release of the roadmap to the public. So, there might be a couple things that are different on here. And they told us that this was going to be changed from barbed wire to just LOD fixes. Anyway, LOD fixes, for those of you who don't know, level of detail, this has to do with like when you're close to a tree, there's a lot of detail on the tree, but when you're far away from the tree, it's, a lot less details are rendered, and it's a lower polygon asset that's rendered. Well, in Hell Let Loose, there's kind of a problem where at some distance, assets just completely disappear. Like there'll be a house there, but if you're far enough away from it, say you pull out your binoculars and you look however many meters away it just completely disappears. It's not there. You can see a guy running, where the house is supposed to be, but you can't see the house anymore. And there's a lot of problems like that with Hell Let Loose. Hopefully those get addressed. VoIP post-match changes. I'm pretty sure what this is going to be is just like once the match is over with, how it just, right now it just cuts everybody off and you go to your XP screen and you're able to look at your personal stats. My guess, an educated guess here, is you're going to actually be able to talk to your team, maybe even the other team, talk smack to each other or whatever. But the real benefit here is it's going to allow you to talk to those people that you enjoyed playing with for that extra just minute, that it's going to take to be like, hey, do you want to be friends on Steam? Hey, do you want to be friends on whatever platform it is you're playing? And that's just that little bit that's going to allow you to communicate just a little bit more after the match when there's less pressure on you to talk about what's actually happening in the match. A very welcome change there. Okay, gameplay reworks. This is where I think there's a lot of stuff, and unfortunately it's just kind of laid out. It looks really vague, but gameplay reworks, I think there's a lot here actually. Precision strike, once again, it's one of those things I was asking for to be made more useful. It's going to be made more useful. It's actually going to affect defensive structures. To what extent is yet to be seen. That's going to be coming out with Tobruk here in April, and I'll dive into how that all works. But so we're going to get precision strike that's more useful. Hoorah! Artillery systems. Now, I really don't know where they're going to go with this. Are they going to get rid of artillery and replace it with mortars or SPGs like we talked about with vehicles? Maybe. Are they going to reduce the amount of guns available? Maybe. I mean, how big of a change is this going to be? I don't know. That's something that we're going to have to ask about. That's something we're going to have to wait and see. One of the things I'm sure they're trying to address here is the artillery/recon meta, where, you have a recon player or a sniper or a spotter, whatever, that goes back to artillery, and they're kind of stuck there because the enemy team just keeps spawning at HQ. And, what do? Do you let artillery rain down on your team and go do things that are more fun, or do you sit there and camp artillery? That's no fun for the artillery players either. I cover all that in the video at the top right, where I talk about how mortars and SPGs could and maybe should, or at least my opinions on it, be introduced into Hell Let Loose. Who knows what this is going to entail, though, but it's on the roadmap. It's going to be addressed in some way, shape, or form, and that's good. I'm really interested to see what artillery systems, what that is. Maybe they'll just change artillery to make it buildable, something that can be destroyed. I don't know. Check that video out. Really interested to see what this is going to be. Armor systems. This is something that people have wanted addressed since Hell Let Loose first released into early access. I don't know what this is going to entail either. I want Hell Let Loose's armor system to be more authentic. I want it to be a little more realistic than what it is. It's a little too arcade for me, but I understand that going too far, going like as far as something like how Squad 44's works, isn't going to fit in with Hell Let Loose. That's too much. It's great for Squad 44. I love that armor system. I've talked about it many times in many videos, but it is not going to work in Hell Let Loose's. So we I don't know how far they're going to go with it. Maybe they'll even make it more simple. I don't know. I would caution as to getting too realistic with it, getting too authentic with it. But something does need to change here. It's too simple for me right now. Medic role. Okay, now a lot of people know that the medic isn't a very useful role in Hell Let Loose as it stands right now. It's just too simple, too fast, and you're not penalized hardly at all for dying in Hell Let Loose. As a matter of fact, lots of times it's beneficial to off yourself just to traverse somewhere else on the map. So one of the most obvious things that could change, that you would change to make the medic role more useful, would be to introduce some sort of ticket system. But I don't think that's what's going to happen here. I don't think they're going to change the way the whole game works just to make this one role more relevant. Now, one of the things that gets brought up a lot is giving the medic role more ammo or better weapons. And I caution against that. And I'll tell you why. There's historical precedent for this, at least as far as Hell Let Loose goes. Back in the day, squad leaders didn't have loadout choices. They all only had the SMG. And you had squad leaders that managed their OPs in such a way where your OP was always near the fight, which is kind of how it should be, right? The moment that Black Matter introduced loadouts to the squad leader role, the moment that you could be a German squad leader with a G43, the moment that you could have your M1 Garand as a US squad leader, the quality of squad leaders and squad leading took a massive nosedive, and it was immediate. You had squad leaders setting up their OPs where it benefited them because they were only interested in having a better weapon where they could get kills at distance. Communication drop. They didn't care what you did. They spawned in on their OP where they wanted it, which was further away from the fight than it really should have been. And they were like, yeah, go ahead, go do what you want. I'm just going to sit back here on this rooftop and farm kills. If you introduce better weapons and more ammunition to the medic role, the quality of medics, which is poor already, is going to plummet again, because you will have people taking the medic role who are more interested in the combat part of it than the medic part of it. Think of it this way. If you're trying to make the anti-tank role better at anti-tanking, you wouldn't give them an MG so they could run somewhere, set up their MG, and not worry about anti-tank things. if you give the medic role something that takes their focus off of being a medic, quality of medic play is going to plummet. Anyway, that's my soapbox with the medic role. Another thing that a lot of people always say is like, well, we need to introduce dragging, like dragging bodies to the medic role. And like I talk about in one of the videos at the top right, you can't just introduce that to the medic role. You can introduce that to the game as a whole. But if you just introduce it to the medic role, you're not saving anything, because the medic can already revive and bandage a player super fast. By the time they grabbed somebody and pulled them into cover, they could have already revived them and that person could have crawled into cover. Introducing dragging for medics only will not improve the role. Now, the medic role has gotten some work in the past, way back when Black Matter still had the reins. So there was a time when medics and regular infantry could bandage at the same speed. Well, that was changed so that medics can bandage much faster. XP was increased for the medic when they got revives, and XP was introduced if you got revived. So for those of you who don't know, if you get revived by a medic, you do get XP. I think it's only 10, it's not much, but that was introduced. None of those things made the medic role. It didn't make it, it didn't take it from being a relatively useless role to all of a sudden being a really useful role. So I really don't know what this is going to entail. I caution against just making it a more combat effective role. I really don't know. I don't think that tickets would fit in well. Maybe you could have manpower drain more like it used to. Right now, every time a player dies that you lose 1 manpower, maybe that could change, but then you're going to have commanders. I don't think people are going to play the game different because you don't lose the game when you run out of manpower. It's just that the commander can't call in certain orders. So I don't know. I'm really interested to see how the medic role plays out. They might do something really huge, or it might just be something as simple as, giving them twice as many smoke grenades. Who knows? Bipods. The quality of setting up your bipods has always been kind of a problem. It's been reworked a couple times and never really worked very well. So hopefully this is just like making it easier to set up your bipod at the very least, but hopefully it's adding bipods to things like the FG42 and maybe the bar, stuff like that. Another thing that I think would be nice here is that right now you can set up bipods on most of the destroyed vehicles and stuff that are on the map. But if you're walking next to a tank that, a teammate is driving and it gets destroyed, you cannot set up bipods on that. And I think you should be able to. So hopefully that gets added. So yeah. That's kind of my thought on what we're going to see, what we might see, what we might not see, what I want to see, what I hope we don't see. Let me know what you guys think of the roadmap. Like I said, I think at first glance, it seems a little vague. It seems a little underwhelming, especially because we waited a long time for it. And some of the things that are on here are things we're going to get in just a few weeks anyway, like Tobruk. But having said that, I think there's more than meets the eye here, especially with those gameplay reworks. Artillery, armor, and medic role, they could be bigger than they seem here, and they might take a lot of work. Because this roadmap didn't come out till damn near April, I think that some of these things are already in the works. I don't think these are things that we're just going to put on the roadmap and maybe we'll get to them. I think that they're already kind of working on these things. Having said that, I would be surprised if everything on here gets finished in 2025. I think some of it might get pushed a little bit into 2026. I don't know. Maybe I'm being pessimistic with that. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Check the description for more ways to support what I do here. As always, thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.